Something Real, Chapter 5. The day of the barbecue arrived, and the pair headed over to his parents' house. Carter pulled up to a large house on several acres of land. "Carter," Izzy turned to him. "I'm a simple girl from small town. Am I going to fit in?" Carter parked his truck and turned to Izzy. "That's what they're going to love about you." "Are you sure?" Izzy asked as Carter walked around to meet her. He reached out and grabbed her hand. "I'm positive." They walked inside and met his mother in the kitchen. "Mom." Carter walked over and hugged his mother. Carter then turned to Izzy. "Mom, this is Izzy." "It's so nice to meet you, Izzy." Marie told her and hugged her. "I'm Marie." "It's nice to meet you, ma'am." Izzy responded. "Your dad's outside," Marie told Carter as he walked to the door behind her. Izzy turned to Marie. "Can I help you with something?" Marie gasped. "Carter," she turned to her son. "Finally, one of you boys found a good one." Marie turned back to Izzy. "Yes, thank you, Izzy." Marie walked back over to the counter. "Can you help me cut this up?" Marie pushed a cutting board and some vegetables to Izzy. "I would love to." Izzy smiled and walked up to the counter and began to cut. Marie turned to Carter and gave him a thumbs up. Carter chuckled and walked outside to talk to his dad. "Hi, Dad," Carter said and grabbed a beer out of a cooler on the patio. His dad, Greg, turned to him and smiled. "Son, where's your girl?" "She's inside helping Mom," Carter told him. "Mom must be eating that up," Greg chuckled. "Oh, she is," and quickly put her to work. Carter laughed. Carter looked around the backyard at everyone who was already there. His brothers and their families were there, along with various aunts, uncles, and cousins. "We got here late?" "No," Greg chuckled. "They got here early." Carter laughed. "I'll be back, Dad. I'm going to go visit for a few." "You know where I'll be." His dad held up the spatula and watched as his son wandered over to the crowd. Izzy and Marie had the stuff inside under control and began to chat to pass the time. "Do you get a chance to visit your parents in the summer?" Marie asked as the women prepared to toss salad. "My parents passed away." "Oh, I'm sorry, honey." Marie felt bad for asking. "I was born late in life to my parents. My dad was 52 and my mom was 48. Wow, that is late. They were still trying to have children." Izzy laughed. "No, my mom didn't even know she was pregnant." Marie gasped. "She didn't?" "No, ma'am." Izzy laughed. "She told me she thought she had just reached an age where she was going through the change, and cried thinking that was it. 9 months later, she woke in the early morning hours with terrible abdominal cramps. Scared my dad to death. He rushed her to the hospital, and the nurse turned to ask her when her due date was. My parents looked at her like she had just asked when they moved here from Mars." Marie laughed as Izzy told the story. "They rushed my mom to labor and delivery, and I was born 2 hours later on February 29th. Your birthday is February 29th? Izzy nodded and glanced over at Marie as she chopped the lettuce. "My mom said I was such a special girl. I needed a very special day to be born on." "How sweet is that?" "I love my parents beyond measure, but I got very used to the questions as a kid." "No, they're not my grandparents, no. I'm not adopted. I look just like my mother, but I got my dad's hair. They sound like great people." Izzy giggled. "There's a couple of pictures of my dad holding me after I was born. In one he looks terrified, and in the next he looks completely content. After he knew me and Mom were okay at the hospital, he left and called everyone they knew. He went straight to the store and got everything baby he could think of, and friends and family got what he didn't think of. They converted the room next to theirs into a nursery in 3 days. I can so picture everything you just told me." Marie chuckled as she finished with the tomatoes. "We just have to take this all out to the patio and enjoy the party." "Great," Izzy smiled and picked up 2 big bowls of salad. "I'll come back for the potato salad." "That sounds great," Marie said and stepped to the back doors. They walked out and crossed Carter on the way to the buffet table. "Can you get the last bowl of potato salad?" Izzy asked him, and he quickly stepped inside to grab it. He soon emerged with a large bowl of potato salad and placed it on the ice. Marie and Greg called everyone to eat. The meal was terrific, and Izzy enjoyed the company. Her and Carter were able to find each other and have a moment to talk. "The fireworks are fixing to start," Carter said as he pulled her close. "My parents hire a company. They put a barge on the lake, and they shoot the fireworks from the middle of the lake. That's so neat," Izzy commented as Carter pulled her to the edge of the lake. I always loved to go sit over here on the deck and watch, he told her as they walked out onto a pier over the water. It just seemed like you were right next to them. He walked her over to the railing on the pier. He stood behind her and put his arms around her. This is the best spot. She smiled and watched as the fireworks started and lasted for about 15 minutes. That was fantastic. Now, we hide out here for another 15 minutes or so and wait for everyone to leave. Then we go clean up. Everyone did leave except Carter and a couple of his brothers and their families. They all had the place picked up and the trash and the cans in about 10 minutes. That was a lot of fun, Mom and Dad. Carter told them after his brothers left. It was, I don't know how y'all do it. Izzy commented. Careful planning and lots of disposable containers. Marie laughed. This tickled Izzy. Carter and Izzy soon said goodbye and walked out to his truck. I'm not ready to call a night, Izzy mentioned to Carter as she looked at the time on her phone. I'm glad you said that. Carter turned to her as they reached his truck. I'm not ready yet either. The two ventured out and ended up at a bar and grill right at the front of their neighborhood. They chatted and laughed over a few drinks, but they needed to get home. Carter walked her up to her front door, wanting one last kiss. I had a great time. Izzy smiled as she pulled out her keys. And your parents are great. Thank you. Carter smiled as they stopped at the front door waiting for her to open it. You want to come in for one last drink? Izzy asked him. Sure. Carter followed her in and they walked to the kitchen. Izzy heard the distant rumble of thunder and quickly thought of Winchester. She stepped to the back door and the dog shot in. The dog doesn't like the weather? No, not at all. Izzy walked over to the fridge and pulled out 2 beers. They sat at the kitchen table and sipped on their beers. You're on vacation starting this week, aren't you? Carter looked over at her as he sipped his beer. I'm leaving Monday morning. She took a long drink of her beer. I wish you didn't have to wait until Wednesday to leave. I tried to get off, but the boss said he needed me on Monday and Tuesday. Carter sighed. This wasn't a complete lie. He had to go to court in Amarillo on Monday, possibly into Tuesday, for a case from a few years ago. Well, we'll see you on Wednesday. She patted the dog who had come to lay down by her feet. I have to tell you, that's the best behaved dog I've seen in a while. Carter commented as he watched the dog. I had a buddy who was a police officer, and his K9 was that good. Well, there you go. Winchester is a police dog dropout. Izzy smiled and looked up at Carter. Really? Yep. One of my buddies trains police dogs, and he knew I was looking for a buddy, so he emailed me asking if I wanted him. I didn't hesitate. Izzy took a sip of her beer as she petted the dog. How much did that set you back? $8,000. Ouch. Carter grimaced a little. Not really if you think about it. It's a huge bargain. A pure breed ranges from $500 to $700, so to get one who's got some serious training. That really is a bargain. I hadn't thought about it like that. The thunder started rumbling closer and closer. Carter swigged the last of his beer. I better get home while the getting's good. He stood up and stepped to the door. Izzy followed him to the living room, where she stopped him. She stepped closer to him, and they both leaned into a kiss. He let one hand linger on her face and looked at her. Do you want me to stay? She kissed him again and stepped closer. I do want you to, but maybe we shouldn't. Why not? Carter was torn too. He wanted to stay, really wanted to. But there was an imaginary line he promised he wouldn't cross with her, for her. I don't want to screw up what we have. Carter kissed her again, and the skies opened up as the wind whipped the rain against the windows. I better go. As much as I want to stay, I think we'll regret it in the morning. I think you're right, she said as the two kissed once more. Let's spend the day on my house tomorrow. It's gonna rain, so we can order in and just watch movies all day. Carter stopped for a moment and looked at Izzy and the way her hair fell. I love you, Izzy. I love you too. He kissed her once more and then dashed out into the rain. Carter made it home and pulled off his wet t-shirt. He had wanted to stay and make his passion for her known, but he knew that wouldn't be fair to her. He meant what he had told her. He did love her. What bothered him was how was she going to take it when she found out who he really was. Izzy woke up sometime in the early morning hours. She lay there for a long while thinking of Carter. She began to remember Montana and wondered how she got here and how she was going to explain to Carter who she really was. Abby pulled into the long driveway of the old farmhouse. She drove up to the house and slowly got out. Within seconds, Deck was standing on the porch. Abby, she nodded. Yeah, it's me. I didn't know where else to go. You did right coming here, but you look like hell. You pull the front door closed. Can you make it to my truck? Yeah. Let's get you to a doc I know on the reservation. He'll keep it quiet. They arrived at the clinic in the early evening hours. The doc was there waiting on them. He had closed up a few hours ago. What happened, Deck? He asked as he helped Abby inside. This is one of those ones. Deck looked knowingly at Doc. I understand. Doc got her to an exam table, and she removed her coat. She's in witness protection. Deck began to explain what happened to get her in the program. I'm guessing it hasn't worked out so well. You could say that. Abby grunted as Doc began to tend to her wounds. I need to get her on in 4. Doc turned to Deck. Can you help me out? Deck stepped over and did what Doc told him to. They soon had her patched up and somewhat comfortable. Doc and Decker stepped out into the hallway. She's comfortable and can rest for a little while. Doc told him, all of her wounds are in and out, and it doesn't look like anything major. Let the 4 meds and fluids do their thing. This is the extent of what I can do for her. She made it up here from Kearney, Nebraska. Deck informed him as he peeked in on Abby. Then chances are she's close to exhausted. Doc took his gloves off and tossed them in a can in the hall. I still want her to finish with the 4 before y'all go. Deck nodded. Just to let you know, I'm going to write up a fall and bruised ribs on your chart. And he picked up a prescription pad. I'm writing you a prescription for the pain. It's non-addictive and somewhat mild, but I wouldn't drive under the influence. I'll let her know. Deck nodded. If she starts looking pale, running a fever, or gets disoriented or unconscious, obviously call me right away. I'm going to take her to my fishing cabin. Decker looked over at the doctor. Good, you have cell service and it's on the res. Doc nodded and finished writing the prescription. Abby finished the 4 and Deck took her to the cabin. He stayed with her through the day and into the night, watching her sleep mostly. He wandered into town at one point and grabbed some takeout and her pain meds. She woke up about an hour after he returned. Abby began to stir and slowly sat up on the edge of the couch. How long have I been sleeping? About a day and a half. Decker started to take the food out of the bag and put it on the table. I didn't want to wake you. You walked and sat on the couch and fell over. I'm sorry. I ran from Kearney, and I didn't stop until we got here. Abby sat on the edge of the couch, trying to get her bearings for a moment. I got us some grub. Deck turned to her, and a couple of shakes. Come get some food. You have to be starving. And you can explain to me what the hell happened. She sat for a moment considering what had happened in the last few days, stood up and walked over to the table. They sat down, and she began to tell him what had happened. The secondary location was compromised. Deck was taken aback as he watched her nod. You know what that means? She nodded and took a sip of her shake. That I can't even call the marshals because someone on the inside gave those bastards my location. Remember that. Decker was angry, but tried not to let it show. Are you going to go in when the trial starts? She nodded vigorously. Yes, but under my terms, I'll call the DA a week before it starts. Deck nodded. I'll keep you hidden here as long as I can. I like to wait a week or 2. Give myself some time to recover, but I'd love to get a job off the books. Abby finished her burger and crumbled the paper. There's a few guys around here that I know who would be willing to do that, as long as you're willing to work. Abby nodded. That's all I asked. She looked around. So this is the infamous fishing cabin? Deck nodded. It's awesome. Can I take you up on that time out here? I kind of need a break. Deck laughed and shook his head. Glad to see you still have your sense of humor. Carter started the day later than usual, wondering if he shouldn't have stayed with her. He jumped in his truck and quickly called Paul. Usual location. Paul told him and hung up. Carter made it and beat him there. Paul pulled up and tore into the parking lot. What's going on that you would call me on a Saturday? Paul knew some shit went down. It had to, or Carter would have waited for Monday morning. Carter didn't say anything. He looked down and looked back over at Paul. Paul sighed and shook his head. You slept with her, didn't you? Carter shook his head, but I wanted to... Paul thought for a moment and looked at how Carter was holding himself. You really got it bad for this one, don't you? I do. Carter leaned against his truck. Paul thought some more. There's no rules against it, but dude, she's a LEO. Had we met under any other circumstances, I would have felt the same way. She's just so easy to be around. Carter looked over at Paul, hoping he had some answers. Look, I get it, you like her a lot, but you can't hurt her. Carter looked off into the distance. I know. That's the only thing that's holding me back. Paul thought for a moment. Do we know it's a yet? No. If we did, she would have been brought in. Carter stepped over to the front of his truck. But you're pretty sure she is? Paul inquired and watched his partner. He had never seen him like this over a lady before. I'm fairly certain it's her, but we have nothing. So if she denies it, Carter started. We have nothing and she can disappear again. Paul finished the thought. Paul looked over at him. I know this is a little late. We had talked about this before. Paul found a recognition in Carter he was looking for. Tread lightly. Carter made it home in time to pick up around his place and ordered some Chinese that should arrive about the same time as her. He was mad at himself for falling so fast, but she made it easy. Izzy came over and they had a fantastic day. It was slow, relaxing, and rainy. Carter let the dog out the back to run around between storms. I need to take him for a run. Izzy pulled her feet off of the coffee table and curled up on the couch. Carter leaned over her and gave her a kiss. Just let him run around out back for a little while. I'm glad you said that. I'm feeling lazy today. Izzy grinned up at him. Me too, Carter confessed. I don't feel like getting all sweaty again. She walked into the kitchen and grabbed a beer out of the fridge. He stepped over to her, grabbed his own beer out of the fridge, leaned in, and kissed her. Why don't we go sit under the cover on the patio? Okay. Izzy took his hand and they walked outside. They sat quietly for a long while. I'm going to tell you something at great risk. Izzy sat thoughtfully as she considered what she was going to say. I'm hoping this doesn't scare you away. Carter's heart began to race, wondering if she was going to tell him who she was. Izzy turned to him. You make me feel safe. He was more than relieved and incredibly happy she didn't tell him. That doesn't scare me away. His heart broke for her. I'm thrilled I can make you feel safe, but why would you not feel safe? Just old ghosts, and I don't have a lot of people I can confide in. Izzy watched as the rain began to fall again. The steady patter on the tin above the patio sounded soothing. Carter didn't want to push it, his reasons being more personal than professional. I'll be here, okay? She put her arms around him and snuggled closer. He never felt so at home with anyone before, and this terrified him.